Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Kuri, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. I'm very excited to be doing this because it's been 3 weeks since I've put anything out. I have been recording, so that's one thing for sure. I have been recording. I was recording the 30-day, 200 episode celebratory episode, and what it was I was detailing day by day what you need to do to move yourself from being sexless to unlimited sex within your relationship. So every single day you would have a task to do, and that be sort of like a blueprint type thing. So as I finished doing it, I realized that the thing was almost 3 hours long in terms of the content, and then I started working on editing it so I can get a bit more concise. And then it's just taking so much time, so I've ended up sending it to a professional to edit it. And in order for you to access that content, because even when it's been edited, it will be still quite long, so it might not be as powerful. Because we started thinking about how you could consume it. If you consumed it as, for example, 1 hour dose, it might be very difficult. And because it's something that you might need to do day by day and step by step, it would be nice to have a way of filtering the days. So if you were on day 15 and then something happened and you wanted to go back to day 15, it would be easy to just go to a place where you just tap day 15 and then you listen to what you need to be doing on day 15. So we've now going to start breaking it down into the days, the audio, and then put it into a mini course. So you just sign up for the mini course and you'll get the link for that mini course at the Facebook group. So you'll be able to go to the Facebook group, get to the mini course, and then it's just like a 30-day thing. So you can get access to it, and then all you can do, you sign up for the course, which is going to be free, and then you just take the course, and you say day one. They need to tell you the task for day one, and then I'm going to build the worksheets. So there's quite a few things that it just ended up happening, and so I've been focused on that. And I gave the actual initial one to the clients that I've already paid. So I was walking them through it and doing the same thing with them, and we've had some really, really good results with it. So, for example, the clients, it took them up to about 3 weeks. So we've refined the process to about sort of 2 weeks to actually get, if you've not had sex for a while, for you to actually be in a position to have sex. And so between 2 to 3 weeks is probably, we're trying to make it shorter and trying to figure out what are the things that we can make it shorter. And one of the things that I've discovered that can make it shorter is a concept that I stumbled upon a few months ago, and because I was so busy, I could not study on it and speak to different people about it. And this has to do with that some women have got a hatred towards men, even though they have a relationship. And that hatred would have come from the men in her life, whether she suffered abuse by men, whether it's sexual or verbal. 9 times out of 10, usually there's some sort of sexual abuse. It might not be physically that somebody touched them or done something to them, but it could be just a look or a vibe that they picked up on that sexualized their interaction, and then it made them feel a resentment towards how they feel, or the shame that they feel to themselves, and the shame that the person caused them to feel. And they end up having this hatred towards men, and they've got this conflict within them that they hate men, but society and how people are driven into this love narrative and how we're built to want to be with people, because we're social beings. So it's very difficult for us to live life without having a partner and not having people around us. So there's that conflict as well. So over a period of time, when you're married, when the faults come out, when you have to be working harder to be closer and be better within the relationship, those insecurities are highlighted by 100. Now, I find this with my relationship, that before I felt like I was a very secure guy. I was very in tune with who I am, and I was very confident. And then I realized as my relationship progressed, all these insecurities started coming out, and they would come out, and I would think, why am I so weak? And why am I so... But I think there's a requirement of you to be vulnerable and be able to let out those insecurities so you can deal with them. And as you deal with them, this is how it elevates the relationship. But what makes it very difficult is that there's a part of you that has to be vulnerable, to look weak in order to build and become very strong. So I'm really going really deep here, but if we just peel it back a little bit, there's even men that hate women that are in relationships. So it's not like just women, but it's similar with men. So you get that men, for example, if your mother was promiscuous, for example, and you grew up, maybe she had different boyfriends and so on. There can be, even though you love your mother, there can be a resentment towards women in particular, and you can be in a relationship. And at the core, because you resent women and you hate women, even though you're in a relationship, you start, when things settle, there's this behavior that comes out that is quite destructive within your relationship. So this is a very important part in terms of being in a sexless relationship, because if your partner and your wife is got a resentment towards men or has got shame associated with men that stems from being the childhood, that could be messing your sexual relationship, because when you carry shame is something that goes and destroys any confidence, any self-confidence. So you find that if your partner, when they look at themselves in the mirror, even though they look absolutely stunning and gorgeous, they have this look in the mirror where they just see every fault and they hate themselves. And a lot of it just stems off of the interactions that they've had with men in the past. And this is very significant, because when you can identify this, it is something that you can now both work on to get better at it. And it's more about allowing her to be vulnerable, for you to be vulnerable, in order to fix this. Now, usually when we talk about this is like people are very uncomfortable about this. People really don't know how to address this. People, in fact, when people go to therapy, and especially when it comes to couples therapy, these are the things that you can be dealing with within a couples therapy. And within this setting, in this topic, that's the only time I can agree to somebody going to... In fact, it's better you don't go to couples therapy. You're better off going individual therapy by yourselves rather than bringing couples therapy into it. Because I think that in itself is just a personal journey that you have to go to, and they have to be willing to go through that journey. Because again, the worst part about it is that that's the only thing that they've known. So if, for example, they're between 20 to 40 years, since the negative interaction that they've had, that's all they've known. So 9 times out of 10, for them to actually heal and move forward, it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of work, not between the both of you, but them as an individual. It's almost like you have to, that person has to cease to exist. That person that is full of shame, full of hatred towards men, that person has to die before that person that is more loving, that is more understanding, that is more... And that is the process that person has to go through. And when we started doing this, we did this a few weeks ago, and I was talking about this, and we started working through this with this couple, and it's been absolutely incredible to see the transformation of the lady. And what's been the biggest transformation is how she speaks to him. She speaks to him with more respect, because she now recognizes that the husband is not the person that hurt her in the past. And every time she sees the man, and whenever there's any interaction that happens that is terrible, that is bad, because we're all going to have bad interactions within a relationship. But what that does, when that happened, it was invoking, was triggering those emotions that she felt, the hatred towards men, and therefore she would go into this vindictive track where she's just making life very difficult for you. And again, it's not conscious that, oh, I'm really going to make this person's life difficult. It's just a defensive behaviors, and end up seeming like it's a vindictive thing, and it's more to do with protection rather than them being offensive. So it's when we stumbled upon this, I've been studying on it. I'm going to try and get some people to interview around this because I think it's very powerful, and it's one way of really starting to understand the like some of these things. Most people say people fall out of they don't want to have sex with me because they just don't find me attractive and so on. But there's other things that could be going on that are much deeper than the physical and the actual relationship itself, and that is beyond even you as a person. And sometimes we get this egotistic type way of thinking where we think it's just because of me, that's the reason why it's happening. But you sometimes there's a chance that it's probably nothing to do with you. It's just that the fact that your relationship has grown to the point where it's now exposing even more of the insecurities that you have as a couple, and then this is what is causing the increase, or at least the knuckling down of you being in a sexless relationship. So I'm going to knock it on the head here. Again, the training for the 30-day plan is going to be available soon. So I would suggest you go to the Facebook group, which is Thriving Tribesmen Facebook group on Facebook. So when you join, when we get the program set up, you'll be able to go and get the link. You go and sign up. It's going to be completely free. And then you can go through the 30 days, and we're also going to be making some notes and worksheets that you can actually print off and actually do some work. And so you can take some notes and be able to do something with your relationship so you can actually start transforming, because this is our gift to you for our 200th episode, and I'm really excited to be delivering it very soon. Thank you very much, and hopefully you guys have had some time to go back and listen to some of the other episodes before while I was not bringing out any content. But now we're back. I'll be doing more content, so we'll look out. I'm going to be making Instagram reels as well, so go and join Thriving_Tribesmen on Instagram. So tomorrow is our first release, where I'll be now getting more videos, short form videos, and that's going to be that on Instagram and also on YouTube Shorts. So we're going to be taking over the media side of things. So now just going to start doing some expansion stuff. So really, really excited to be back. Really excited to be making this episode. Thank you very much. Speak to you soon. Take care. Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Kuri, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. I've been struggling to make this episode for the past few days, and to be honest with you, it's been in the making for the past 4 months. Towards the end of last year, I was thinking about making this episode, and a lot of things were going on in the world, and really the episode was about that we are at war as we know it. I mean, you're in a sexless relationship because we're at war, and you're a casualty of the war. And just bear with me, because by the end of this episode, some of you would want to follow me and continue listening to these episodes, and some of you are just going to bow out and not want to listen to me ever again. So hence the reason why I sort of had reservation to actually make this episode, because I thought maybe it's important to continue spreading the message and then water it down so that we can reach more people. But I think it doesn't reach and give you the best information, or at least the best results from moving from being sexless to ultimate sex. And there's several things that need to happen, and one of them is to recognize that we're at war, and this war is for attention and the core values. And there's several agendas that are trying to pull family as we know it away from the truth, men as we know it away from the truth, women away from the truth, and now children away from the truth as we know it. And if you've just woken up from a coma, you're probably thinking, what the fuck is going on? Like, literally, what the fuck is going on? And I started realizing this more and more as I was speaking to people and getting people into conversation, into sales conversations. And as I was speaking to them in terms of just really trying to figure out what the problem was, there was a common theme. And I think the best way to explain this, because I've tried to make this episode a few times. I've tried to explain the issues, and I tried to look at explaining it from the agendas that are being pushed, and I tried to break down. And each way I was doing a disservice to the actual podcast itself. So I thought the best way of doing it is I show you how it has affected me, and then hopefully it might give you enlightenment on how it would have affected me, and then how it might be affecting you, and how you can now change that and then be a vehicle for change. I think one of the things that I was afraid of, obviously, I don't have the following of any of the bigger influencers. So if you think of people like Jordan Peterson, think of people like Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, you think of all the guys that are generals within this war that are really trying to pull back people to the truth. Everyone is sort of trying to cancel them, or this sort of, and it's a message that really rubs people the wrong way. That, again, people don't sit down and have conversation with them. I think if you sit down and have a conversation, you would probably find a few things that you don't like. But generally, most of the stuff is just really trying to bring people back to the truth. I think sometimes we're so far gone off cuckoo land that it makes it very difficult for us to come back. So I'm going to try and break it down from a male perspective. And if you think about masculinity as it is right now, there's been a massive push into things like Me Too movement, and there is sort of collateral damage when it comes to that in terms of masculinity. So it's impacted the way we communicate with women, and also how women feel about themselves, and how we even look at consent and sex and the feeling towards sex. And all of those things have been distorted in a way that now we find, I was having a discussion with some people on there was a post that was on Instagram, and it was about this guy. He walks up into the kitchen, he fist bumps his wife and says, "Hey, how you doing? Rent is due in a couple of days, bro." And the caption was, "When you haven't had sex for a while." And basically what he was saying, what people started saying at the bottom was like, well, what if she doesn't feel like it? What about consent? And there were all these things. And if you put it down to it, like, if the role is not defined where you can actually have sex with a partner, and they're not willing to make the move to have sex, then what's that relationship for? We're just good as bros. We're just as good as people that are hanging out. And this is one of the things I love about my wife, that when we became sexless, it was generally because of the fact that she got fibromyalgia. Physically, she was in pain. It was very difficult for her to live life, because she would wake up in pain. She would have to still be a mom, and she had to be a wife, and then she had to look after us as a family. And that was exhausting on its own. Then to make time for us, that was quite difficult as well. So for her to move from that sort of mindset of I can't have sex to I'm going to make it a priority, and regardless of how I feel, that was a massive shift in her mind. And when I put this out there, the people actually put her down for it. The fact that, if you feel bad, you should never do it. But at what cost? Like, if she doesn't prioritize and make a point to actually do it. And I'm not saying that she does stuff because in pain. She knows that if there's any sign of pain that she's feeling during sex, before sex, I'm not going to do anything that's going to put her in any more pain. We've figured out a way of doing it in a way that's not painful for her, that is pleasurable for both of us, and we both feel connected afterwards. But on the mainstream society, the way the feminism is pushed is that she has to be individualistic, and she has to put criteria on how and when sex should happen, and there has to be certain things that I have to fulfill for her in order for me to have sex. So some of them, recently I heard somebody say, if he's not willing to do dishes, then you should divorce him. I mean, like, that's crazy. Absolutely mental. And this is like an agenda by the feminist movement, and how women have been oppressed for so many years. So therefore, in order to regain the power, we have to balance the scales, and the men have to be more in the house, and they have to be doing more around the house. But if they do enough, then you can give them sex. And some of you guys that are in a sexless relationship, this is the sort of information that is being fed to your women. The thing that they're boss bitches, they have to be intellectual, they have to pursue much higher heights within their career in order to feel fulfillment. Now, that's another agenda within the feminism, and that could be affecting your wife, and that's what's being pushed. Like, for example, if your wife is a career woman, she is in battles with men, with people that are going to be causing her to be resentful towards men. And the only way she gets balance is when she gets home, when she can put you down. I mean, that's the crazy thing that's the crazy life we're living in. I've been fortunate enough that the word submission has never been used within our relationship, but we practice it a lot within our relationship. And my wife has been submissive to my career, so she's chosen a career that allows her to work and contribute to our income, but also be a mom and a wife and contribute to the family and be amazing a mom and be an amazing wife. And one of the things that makes it amazing is that sometimes she might be feeling very tired, a little bit ill, and then maybe there's dishes that need to be washed. She will text me and say, I feel very bad that I'm leaving this on here. She feels bad about it. Like, oh, I feel bad I haven't cooked, dinner with veg for the kids. Like, she values, this is her values. And for me, it just shows me that this is a great mom. This is somebody who's takes pride in being a great mom, a great wife. And this is where value is. And I'm not going to speak for her, but she finds fulfillment in knowing that she can do well for herself as a mom and as a wife. In terms of fulfillment and happiness, that's for her to speak. I'm not going to speak for her. Now, I'm saying it in this way, but you should start hopefully saying that there is an agenda to pull her attention. So my wife will watch videos of Facebook or TikTok like any other person in the world. But the information that is targeted towards women is very destructive. It's one where they are reminding them that they're victims. It's where they're reminding them that they're oppressed. And because they're oppressed, they need to balance the scale. And generally, when they try and balance the scale, it is at the expense of the actual relationship. Because whenever I'll just give you this concept. Whenever there's freedom or whenever there's offering of freedom, it's at the price of something. Like when, the Western world decided there was WMDs in Iraq. In order to give freedom to Iraq, there was a price to pay, and that was blood and civilians. Thousands of people got killed. That was at the price of freedom. And if you think of your children right now I've got a daughter, and you got men that are posing as women or are saying they're women, who are now speaking for women. Like, what chances has my daughter got in order to become a successful female when females are men? This is why I say we're at war for attention and for our core values. And if you cannot see this, there's an opportunity that you are already losing. This is what we've been talking about. So why is it important for you to train? Why is it important for you to get your mind together? Why is it important for you to actually start fixing your life, that you are financially free? It's because when you think about it, all these agendas are agendas that are people that are broken, people that are were victims at one point, and they're speaking loud so they can speak for their freedom. But it takes a life of its own. Just like when Rosa Parks at one point decided they wanted freedom for black people. Black people got free. But then I find it crazy when I hear black people still talking about that we are they're not oppressed. Like, that's crazy for me. That's mental. Like, I've never seen anybody, and I've never lived in America, but I've never seen an American black person who's an American citizen who has got no rights to school, who's got no rights. Like, as soon as you're born, you have every advantage that everybody's got. Yes, there's some, just like any place, like here in the UK, depending on where you grow up, which suburb you go, or estate, we call them estate here. There's different places where you can grow up, and it can influence where you're going to end up. But generally, when you start from the same place. Now, if you start in a place where it's rough, in the ghetto, and your parents see themselves as a victim, you're more likely to be unsuccessful in life. Now, that's just a side note. And this is what I'm trying to say, that a lot of people have started this movement from a victim. Rosa Parks was a victim. She fought for her freedom. She got freedom. It's when this thing takes a life of its own. So when you get transgenders, they fought for themselves to be recognized. They get recognized and are given the space. It takes a life of its own. And the life of its own is of when a man starts saying that they can give birth to children. Now, I'm saying we're at war. I saw a TikTok of a guy who is a man who's transitioned into a transgender woman and is asking children to become patrons so they can have conversations private. He's literally saying, your parents have failed you. Come to this place where I can talk to you. Children. Now, I don't even know what this guy is. He could be a pedophile for all I care. Like, I mean, this is what I think, that he's probably a pedophile. And I have to think that way first until he proves me otherwise. So, like I said, freedom has got a price. If my kid wants to be free and wants to live free as a transgender, me allowing them to have that kind of freedom will have a price. There's a price. So I don't even know if I'm coherent and it actually makes sense. I'll probably have to re-listen to this. So again, I'll probably post it, and then if I find that it doesn't make sense, I'll probably put it down and then retry and repost it again. But I know it's a long-winded way of saying it. So if you look at it from my wife's perspective, you've got feminism, you've got Me Too movement, you've got all these movements that are now just taking lives of its own and really taking her away from the core values of being a wife and being a mom and at the expense of the relationship of a husband and wife. And us men are not immune to it, because we also have our own issues and agendas that are pulling us away from what is the truth. And not just that, our children are now under attack. You got transgenders trying to teach them that there's more than one gender. Now, I don't care what people want to be and what they choose to be, no problem. But I don't want it to be taught to my children. If my daughter one day says they want to transition to a man or a boy, I will not allow them to do so up until they get to an older age of 18. I'm not going to make that decision for them when they're 11 years old or 12 years old. Because unfortunately enough, I've seen enough videos of people that have transitioned, they've become adults, and they regret every single day the decision that they made, because they're adults that were pushing them to do it. So now you see how we are under attack and we're at war. And I know it sounds dramatic, but we're at war. And there's people that have spoken about this in different ways. But in terms of being in a sexless relationship, can you see how just the outside influence is influencing your relationship and is taken away from your relationship? Now, this doesn't mean that your wife should stop watching TikTok. This is more to do with you than exhibiting behaviors of what a leader should be. Because if you're conflicted and you're not steady and you're not moving in the right direction and you're not dependable, there's certain things that will set the tone of your family. And this is what we talk about, like fortify your mind, go training, read, study, make yourself into a valuable person so you can earn much more. When you can do this, this empowers you to be able to become an unstoppable warrior. And this is what I've been trying to teach for some time. And I think to make that distinction and really put that flag in the sand and say, this is what I stand for, is probably the quickest way of moving from being sexless to unlimited sex within your relationship. Because, I mean, for example, the attack on masculinity has been be more in touch with the emotions, be more feminine, embrace the feminine side. Like the worst one is sit her down and tell her how you feel. That's some crazy shit. Especially when you're talking about sex. Like sitting her down to talk about sex and say, this is how I feel because you're not giving me sex, is probably the worst advice you can ever do. Like that's the worst thing. Because she's never going to turn around and say, oh, I see the logic side of us not having sex, so therefore I want to have sex with you. It's never going to work like that. All it does is just puts the spotlight on her, how she's not effective as a woman, triggers the fact that she's got feelings and she's got freedom and she's supposed to be independent and will not care about what you're going to say based off of what feminism is, whatever feminism stuff has been put into her. So you can see that it's a very difficult battle to fight if you don't know that you're at war. But when you recognize that you are a warrior, you're a tribesman, a warrior that is at war, you can have the right equipment, the right mindset to get into this war. Like, for example, if for some reason in my daughter's school they started teaching multiple genders and all sorts of stuff, I would raise hell. And I would raise hell at the expense of people calling me transphobic and people trying to call me all sorts of names. Because when it comes to war, you have to fight. You have to get up and fight. And the best way at this moment I can fight is to become the best leader within my household and keep the core values, because that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for those core values as husband and wife, so we can grow and evolve and fall in love and still be in love and still have a sex life that keeps our relationship growing and amazing. We're fighting because we want our children to grow in an environment where they can be free to express themselves, but not influenced to express themselves in a way that will hate in the future. So I've gone further than I normally do, and I'm so glad that I've had this opportunity to speak. I feel glad that I've opened this up. I'm okay with people not listening to me again. I'm okay with people taking on this message and then really running with it. Because the quickest way of really changing your sexless relationship is actually recognizing that where we are, what's the environment, and what is going on. I mean, just to end this off, Bud Light did the same thing where they were pushing an agenda. And that was just trying to make profit from agenda. And again, we'll talk about this, how
agendas are pushed and in order to maximize profit. And I'll put that in another episode. But that was one of them, one of the examples. Gillette did the same. We're trying to step in with the Me Too movement and forcing it on men. Again, that was trying to shame us for wanting to be with women. Like, that sort of shaming in order to give freedom to women, like, that level of trying to give freedom to women had a negative impact on men, and that was shame. Like, men were left with shame for wanting to be with women. So freedom has got a price, it's got a cost. And what's the cost for what we're allowing in terms of attention of our families, your children, your wife? What is the cost? And some of you are living in it. Some of it is sexless relationship, a relationship that is where you're both unhappy. That's for sure. And when you're both unhappy, it trickles down to the children. Whether you like it or not, it will be evident for them. They are learning what a terrible relationship is, and when they get into a relationship, it's going to be terrible because that's the template that you've set for them. So it's upon you to recognize they're at war and get up, put your flag and declare war, and start working towards making yourself a great warrior that's a leader within your family, and eventually a leader within your community. So thank you very much for listening. Hopefully I can have you back again. Again, if you want to get the 30-day game plan for getting your sexy back, go and join our Facebook group at Thriving Tribesmen on the Facebook group. Once it finishes editing, we'll be putting the link in the description. We'll be putting the link inside the Facebook group, so you can actually go and partake on this. It's going to be completely free, so it's just our gift to you guys. So thank you very much for listening. I'll be speaking to you guys soon. Take care.